Welcome to the Self-Reliant Steward podcast. I'm your host, Damia. On this podcast, I will share stories, scriptures, words of the prophets, and research to help you, Latter-day Saint parents, teach your teens, and create a financial legacy of self-reliance. No more living paycheck to paycheck. No more going in and out of debt. Start today to change your family's life for the better by becoming a wise steward of what the Lord has blessed you with. Welcome back to the Self-Reliant Steward podcast. I'm your host, Damia. Today's money trivia question is, on average, how much money do Americans spend on fast food each month per person? The answer is $148 per month. For a family of 4, that would add up to be nearly $600 a month. That's over $7,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Do you know how much money you spent on fast food last month compared to the month before? How can we know where our money is going or how much progress we are making if we're not keeping track? Not tracking spending is the 6th of 8 mistakes teenagers make with money that we are discussing in this series on the podcast. My objective is to help all of us recognize areas of money we can discuss with children and teenagers to help them avoid or overcome common money mistakes, and by so doing, become self-reliant and wise stewards of the resources the Lord blesses them with. If you don't know what series I'm talking about, go back to episode 1 of the podcast, and I'll see you back here when you're caught up. Now let's dive in. In 2014, Michigan State University conducted a study about tracking progress and accomplishing goals. Quote, the results of the study showed that 76% of participants who wrote down their goals and actions and provided weekly progress to a friend successfully achieved their goals. This result is 33% higher than those participants with unwritten goals, with a success rate of only 43% of goals achieved. President Thomas S. Monson, who was the 16th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, stated, quote, when performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement accelerates. When we measure our progress on anything, be it a goal to be able to run a marathon, or measuring our progress towards a financial goal, measuring progress helps us see the progress we are making. Being able to see our progress can help motivate us to keep going. It can also help us to see any adjustments that we could make that would help us achieve our goals. When we don't measure our progress, it is hard for us to look back and remember what we have accomplished. We are likely to either not see any progress or to assume that we are doing better than we are. A few months ago, I was talking with a relative of mine. She wanted to read more, but she consistently says that she doesn't read much. I could see that she reads more books than she thinks, so I showed her an app where she could keep track of books she has read and wants to read, as well as track her progress on books she is currently reading. In less than 10 minutes, this relative was able to see that she reads at least 4 times as much as she thought she did. Since using that book app, this relative of mine has also started using a habit tracking app. She went from knowing a handful of German words and phrases to spending about 10 minutes a day learning German. She previously felt guilty when walking by her bookshelf full of books she wanted to read. Now she spends at least 5 minutes every day and reading, and many days she reads upwards of 30 minutes. We are just barely a month into the year, and she has already finished reading 4 books. Now, what does all this about tracking and measuring progress towards our goals have to do with tracking spending? Everything. Recently, I talked with a woman who started an online business a little over a year ago. She has not been tracking her business spending this whole time. Now, she is inputting all the business transactions from 2023 so that she can do her business taxes. She has been working on entering these transactions for a few minutes every day for about 2 months now, and she is still not finished. If instead of waiting until 2 months ago to start tracking the business transactions, she had taken time each week to enter those transactions, she would be ready for tax time in a couple of hours or less. Tracking spending not only saves us time when we get ready to do taxes, it also allows us more freedom. This same woman told me that she does not know where she stands financially, either for her business or for her personal finances. She told me that the other day she put $500 into her savings account. A few days later, something came up that she wanted to use the $500 for, and so she did. Later that same day, she realized that she had originally intended the $500 for a specific purpose, but then forgot what that purpose was until she had already spent the money on something else. Now she has to wait and find another way for the original purpose. Confession time. I am not always consistent at tracking my spending, and I experience the consequences. One time, in working on my taxes, I realized, like the woman I just talked about, I had not yet imported all of my expenses into the software that I was using. I had to spend an extra 30 minutes or so adding these transactions that I had not yet entered before I was ready to file my taxes. Dedicating a specific and regular time to tracking our spending will save us time and money and help us become wise stewards of what the Lord has blessed us with, especially if we have a good tracking system. When my mom first left home and went to college, she did not have a good system for tracking her spending. She neglected to write her ATM withdrawals in her checkbook. With that mistake, she overdrew her account multiple times and had to pay overdraft fees. We need to know how much is coming in and going out in order to live within our means. Creating a budget is only half the process. Creating a budget and then not tracking spending would be like making a meal plan, but then going grocery shopping without a grocery list or the meal plan. Then, even if you look back at the meals you planned, you don't have all the right ingredients for every meal. In order to achieve financial self-reliance, we need to budget and track our spending. Budgets are the plans which can be adjusted as we go. Tracking spending is how we make sure we are following the plan and moving towards the goals and outcomes we desire. Luke 14:28 says, quote, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" End quote. As we build a building or follow any other plan, we need to consistently evaluate if we are following the plan and the budget to make sure it is finished properly and we don't run out of money. Now that we have talked about tracking spending in general, how can we help children and teenagers learn to track their spending? Suggestion number 1, print out a chart and hang it on their wall for them to fill out every time they earn or spend money. Suggestion number 2, use cash only. When I was a teenager, I kept all of my money in a binder with pencil cases in it. Each pencil case held money for a different category. Once the money in a category was gone, it was gone. There is at least one disadvantage of only using suggestion number 2. When I was a teenager and kept my money in this binder, I occasionally felt like I was missing some money. To this day, I still don't know if I just forgot that I had spent some of it or if someone was stealing money from me. This experience shows another important reason for tracking spending. It is important to keep tracks, specifically with bank accounts, so that fraudulent charges can be quickly and easily identified and reported. Suggestion number 3, sit down with your teen at a regularly scheduled time and track your spending together. You don't have to do it with them, but if you set aside a time for yourself and they know what you are doing during that time, you will become a good example to them of a wise steward. Teaching them through a word, in addition to being an example, is usually the best way to teach children and teenagers about money. Applying all 3 of these suggestions will make the greatest impact in teaching teenagers to track their spending. Stay tuned for next week as we talk about the 7th out of 8 mistakes teenagers make with money and how to help them avoid or overcome these mistakes and ultimately become self-reliant and wise stewards of what the Lord has blessed them with. Now, if you found this podcast helpful, and specifically this episode helpful, I'd love it if you'd leave a comment and a review, and I'll see you next week.